now in your face. This is going to be a 2 to 3 hour show, usually about 2. We're trying to keep it down to. Gerald likes to go along, but this is the Art Challenge show, which is the Let It Out. This is Gerald's show. But yeah, we do challenges here. You know, if you're not subscribed, you're not watching us on YouTube, go ahead and check us out there. 50% of the views we get on YouTube are new viewers. Make sure you guys are subscribing so you don't miss anything. Hit the bell. We've interviewed over 100 artists, creators, IP owners in the indie comics community. You will find and learn so much from the conversations that we have. We have features on artists, everything. But today's episode, it's all about Gerald. So let's go ahead and
about me? No, it's not about me. It's
all about Gerald.
No,
Gerald's not the show.
We have a great guest today. His name is Derek Laufman. If you haven't heard of him, which I'm sure you have, you probably have seen some of his artwork as well. And we're just gonna we're just drill down and make sure everybody else knows that doesn't know. So let's start the show.
Yeah,
here we go.
Well, wait. Before we bring him in, just to let you guys know, Derek. I mean, he's been published across the board. He's got loads of experience. Everything you guys, we're going to have an artist challenge with him on this show live. It'll be those 3 challenges. If you haven't seen our show before, Derek has done. He's been published, and if you could think of the name, he's been published there. So you probably know his work. You're going to get to meet him today, and let's get the ball rolling. All right.
Now
we're done. Okay, good. All right. Let's do it. Right,
I think we had a little bit of a miscommunication there, but it's okay. It's all good because I just wanted to get him in here so we could talk about all of his accolades and what he's all about. So here we go. Derek, welcome to Comics Cast. Let It Out. Say hello to everybody.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. Good to meet you. I like I said before the show, I'm familiar with your artwork. It kind of works that way. But I haven't. It's a pleasure to meet you and have a conversation, figure out how all the bells and whistles work with your magic fingers.
Oh yeah, that's right. There is magic in those fingers. If you didn't know who Derek is, let me just give you a little brief intro about this guy. He's worked with Marvel. He's worked with Disney. He's worked with Star Wars. Mattel, Hasbro. You just name it. The guy has his fingers in everything. Just done some phenomenal work. I discovered his artwork through a iOS app. Well, actually, it's a mobile app. It's the Star Wars card trading app. And as soon as I saw it, he was, I believe, the first featured artist that they actually had a set of cards that he designed. And the moment I saw it, it just totally captivated me. There was such life and energy, and it was just so fun. So when I looked at it, I was like, I got to know more about him. And fast forward, I think that was like 2 or 3 years ago, I just started eating it up. Looked at all his stuff. I mean, he's done, like I said, he's worked with all these great studios. So he is a creator. He's an indie creator. I think we're going to define or sort of say what indie means to him, because it's because one could say, yeah, he's doing mainstream stuff. And I think the misconception is that sometimes indie means that you don't work for mainstream. I'm going to say with Derek's case, he does work with mainstream, but he's independent. He's an independent creator, and that's the thing that's really cool. So enough of me talking. Let's pass the mic over to you, Derek. Let's hear your origin story. And as we hear your origin story about your creative journey, I'm just going to pull up a PDF of some of your phenomenal artwork, and then we're just going to bombard you with so many great questions because, man, you got a story to tell. So here, the mic is in your hands. Tell us your origin story.
Okay, cool. So, okay, I guess I can start with, I've been drawing since I was very little. I'm going to say like 3 or 4 years old. My mom has some, I don't know if she still has them, but I remember at one point seeing old drawings I had done. I was watching, I guess, Indiana Jones a lot because I had drawn a lot of tanks, and like the bad tanks had the swastikas on them because they were the Nazis and like Raiders of the Lost Ark. Well, you know, and I'm 4 at the time, and this is like, you know, 1981. So, and that's how I defined, like, these are the bad guys.
They are the bad guys.
And they are, and I do that back then. So pretty smart, I guess, at 4 years old. And yeah, I've been drawing like all through school. I was the kid who would doodle in his book instead of doing the work I was supposed to be doing. It was my way of like being able to sort of maintain myself in a classroom where I wasn't all that interested in what the teacher was talking about. I probably had some sort of like ADD or something that was not diagnosed, but I would I would be there doodling in my book. And that was like how I got through school. It was just like doodling in my book. And that just, I think from a pretty early age, I knew I was going to be an artist. I'd say probably grade 6, I'd sort of told my parents that this is what I'm going to do. And they were very supportive, like all through. I think they realized academically I wasn't that great gifted.
Whatever.
And
like every great artist.
I struggled. And so, yeah, they were very supportive. And my aunt was an artist in BC. She did like a lot of illustrative work
Awesome.
independently as well. So I think just probably that my parents had the mindset of like, this is a cool thing. I think back then, though, it was a little bit more, how are you going to make a living was still a feeling back then. Because this is like probably me making this announcement. It's probably early 90s. And, it still wasn't a lot of doors open for artists back then. And I didn't even really know what I was going to do. I just kind of knew I wanted to be an artist. And then shortly after that, I got into comics. And then I decided I want to be a comic artist. And that was my teenage years. My teenage years was me, pontificating to the world that I'm going to be a comic artist.
Oh, I love that word.
I started picking up, when Image Comics came out, that's kind of when my big comics interest, it was right around the time, and I was like in grade 9 and grade 8, grade 9, and a comic book store opened across from our high school. So like on lunch hours, I could go over to the comic book store that was across the street, and it was like a perfect little storm. And Image Comics had just come out, so comics were sort of like exciting again. That was like right at the boom of like comics, and everybody's buying comics to like, one day sell for millions of dollars. All your Spawn ones and Savage Dragon #1 and all that. I remember like going to the comic store, and I missed Savage Dragon #1. It was like #2 when I realized what Savage Dragon was, and I had to spend $15, which is huge to me. Like $15. That was like my lunch money for the week was $20. So I had to I would take that $20 like all the time, and I would spend it on comics. And I would just I'd eat French fries every day for like $1 a day, and then
you were
$50 to spend on comics.
Yeah, starving artist in high school. So,
that's right. And it was sort of like, it was cool, just to sort of be able to fantasize. Like back then, it was like, a lot of young people. I'm probably like 15 at this point, and you'd hear stories in Wizard magazine about young artists like signing big contracts with like Image and and moving out to California, and it was this whole like fairy tale that was like, I'm like, this is gonna be me, one day. And so anyway, art in high school was not going well for me because my high school art teacher hated comics, like hated it. He was very much like an art history kind of guy, like
fine arts.
What he was into.
Yeah, for sure.
Fine arts and art history.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, he would be a great art history teacher, but not a great art teacher. Especially because he didn't really encourage comic drawing and illustration and stuff like that, cartooning. So that was a bit sad. So I left high school with no portfolio really to speak of, and I wanted to get into Sheridan. So Sheridan was like the big art school that was close to me. They had an illustration program, they had an animation program, and at this point, I'm sort of doing some comic stuff like here and there with my friend. It was just kind of like, we sit in his basement, like doing comics, and, they kind of do. And you think they're better than they are. And, the garbage. But I'm just trying. And I remember I met at this local comic convention. David Fincher was.
There we go.
David Finch.
Yes,
yeah.
David Finch.
He was one of the artists. And I remember bringing my crappy inked, I think it was inking over like photocopied paper, and I was like trying to I wanted to be an inker at this point. And he was really encouraging, but he could tell like now looking back, I'm like, wow, he's just like being really nice to me because it was awful. It was awful what I'm showing him. And but it was just like little things like that. Like when you get the little bit, like a professional artist giving you that little bit of encouragement, sometimes just helps keep you going.
Yes.
Keeping the fantasy alive, if you will.
Uh-huh.
So anyway, after high school, not having a portfolio to speak of and wanting to get into like illustration or the animation program, I decided to take like an art fundamentals course that they offered at the college. It was just like a 1-year course where you get like a sort of like a little taste of everything from photography to sculpting to life drawing, some like background work, just different things. It was just kind of like a mishmash of different art stuff, but it was enough to sort of start to build a portfolio. But this is my first year at college, and I'm like, I'm gonna party and not like really work like the, I was just like a really bad so I graduate from this program with a portfolio that sucked, really. Like I didn't really spend that much time on it.
This is at Sheridan?
So
at Sheridan?
This is at Sheridan, like, so my first year of this art fundamentals course. So I'm like 20 now, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I have this crappy portfolio. I'm like, I'm kind of feeling like a loser. I'm like, what am I gonna do? Like this no, Marvel's not knocking down my door or anything like that. And then I ended up taking some night courses. So they offered, like, for the animation course, they offered like sort of like these, like, you can go on the weekends or evenings, and I would take these part-time courses that were a little more geared towards making up actual portfolios. So it was like a background course, and like I took like a watercolor course and figure drawing. So like those courses really helped. So that really kind of got things going for me. And then I finally had a portfolio that was like worthy of like submitting to, like, and I got into the animation. I got into the animation program after that. So it was just like, I was sort of late maturing, I think, because, I'm partying in school when I should have been working, and I wasn't really taking it all that seriously.
Right.
So then I got into the animation program. And so animation sort of was my, in my head, I still wanted to be a comic artist. Here I am in the animation program. Everybody wants to do animation. I'm like shouting at everybody, I'm going to do comics. And they're like, what are you doing?
Die hard comics. Comics.
Yeah. I was still comics, and it was right around the time when the animation industry, because it was classical animation at this time, the animation industry had started to turn into 3D. Like that's when Toy Story had been big. They were working on like A Bug's Life was going to be coming out. I remember seeing like early reels they showed us of like the Bug's Life. And so that's around that time. So the actual classical animation side of things was tanking. So all of us were like, what are we going to, like, nobody in the program is like going to get a job. And I'm like, I'm good. I'm going to do comics. Like, don't worry. Like, I'm fine. Like, and
I know. Back in high school, I knew this, or middle school.
Yeah. So, and so anyway, so now I'm about to graduate from animation, and I had been working with a indie publisher. I'm not going to say who they are because this gets into a story that sort of like dashes all my comic book dreams.
Oh, this is the sour story that you're talking about. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah. So anyway, so I'm working on like these projects for them and sort of trying to. They're paying me to do work, which is great. I'm getting paid while I'm in college to do some work on the side, and it was comic work. Doing sample pages and things like that they were going to be pitching for projects and things like that. And then they approached me to like come up with my own story. And, and then I don't know exactly how it happened, but a friend of mine started working with me. I just graduated animation college, and we were still working with this like publisher, this indie publisher. And we started developing this project that was called like Blade of Aruvia. And it was this anime sort of manga style comic they were working on, this like epic adventure. And it was great. Like, I mean, I had like a friend of mine doing some art assists on backgrounds, and like we were both tag team in the writing. The publisher had brought on Liquid, who was huge at the time because they were coloring for like Joe Mad. So like that studio, they brought them on. And they were offering us like a good wage, like page rate. It was like really good. And the book gets picked up by Image. And I'm like, this is my dream. Like literally, this is my dream.
Yeah.
Like, I'm going to work for Image. You know, we're going to get our book published by Image. And then I was like, I'm just about done the first issue, or I just finished the first issue penciling it. And I got this like email saying that like from the publisher, he was kind of giving me this weird story about how Jim Valentino wasn't happy with the artwork, because Jim Valentino was kind of like head of stuff.
Editor in chief.
And I was kind of skeptical, like what's going on here? Like we have Liquid coloring it. I was really proud of the work we were putting out. Like it looked really great. And it was strange. And then they ended up saying like basically they found like another artist, they basically took the project from under us and like rebranded it. And they had another artist like draw it. And I started to see, I don't know where I saw the pages, but I saw the first couple pages and I'm like, these are like my designs and like kind of like my layouts. It was really weird. It was weird. We were in this weird little limbo of like, I had the like rug pulled out from under me on this Image project. And they were like stealing my ideas, and me and my friend were like, do we sue these people? Like we started to like wonder, like, what do we do? We're in Canada and they're in the US, and I'm like, this is gonna be a whole thing. I have no money. Like I'm just out of college, you know, and it was it was just like, it was a really horrible situation. I was just like, and at the time it was just like, well, that was as close as I thought I was ever gonna get to the comic book industry and like going mainstream. And it just crushed me. Like I was just crushed. And I didn't know what to do. I didn't know where to turn. You know, I was frustrated. And I'm like, this is how the comic book industry is. I don't want any part of it. Like I just don't, like I was just so frustrated. So I got out of comics. That was my like get out of comics. And I just went and got a job doing graphic design somewhere.
Oh man, you sound like that sounds like me. It's like I was like, I thought, it's funny. It's like I thought about going to Sheridan. I had an opportunity. I had family that was up there, and I was just thinking to myself, so many of the guys that I've met through Raid, and then now you. It's like maybe if I had gone there, maybe I would have been contemporaries with you guys. But it's so disheartening to hear that story about how that could have, you know, you've already had all these potential roadblocks. Everything from your middle school or your high school teacher telling you no, comic art bad, you know, to this heartbreaking, you know, just demoralizing story where, you know, where somebody pulls the rug out from under you, takes your designs. One thing if they handed it to another creative team, but that creative team is kind of like swiping you as well, and it's just
that was the thing. And I don't necessarily blame the artist, because I don't know the artist personally now, but I'm an admirer of his work. And I don't know what he knew at the time. Like, I don't know if they were communicating with him, like if he was really all that familiar. You know, I suspected that maybe they got into some bit of trouble because the page rate they were paying me at the time and they had promised me was pretty high. You know, even for like a new artist, and then they were paying Liquid as well, who's very expensive.
Yes.
So I imagine they're like per page, like what they were in for was like this like crazy number that they probably couldn't sustain, and I imagine that was part of it. But I never got the full story, and I was too jaded and bitter to like. I just basically didn't want to talk to those people ever again. I'm like, I'm just done. I just want to be done with this industry. I was so disheartened. So I did graphic design. I actually designed shoes for a while because it's like I worked for the shoe company doing graphic design. That was weird. That was a weird job, but I'm like, at least I'm drawing. So then from there, I got fired from that job because I hated it and they knew it. And then that led to me applying at a video game company in London, Ontario called Big Blue Bubble. And they were a video game company. And when I was unemployed, I put together this nice little portfolio resume that they were really impressed with, because I had like almost made it into like a comic book, like my resume. And they were like, oh, this stands out from all the other resumes, like, you know. So I was able to get that job, and that was sort of like launched my like sort of 10 years in video games.
That's what I was gonna say, is that experience, which I'm glad that, you know, in terms of like, you know, you stepping away from comics, I kind of look at it as like, this is you getting your feet wet in other industries and other components of creativity. I mean, you know, you mentioned you did shoe design. I didn't know that. So maybe there might be some Air Force. Is it Air Force Ones or like Adidas?
Oh
or
no,
like,
nothing good. No,
Oh,
no, it was like some
right.
Docs, like
Box
Dockers
design?
slippers,
What?
like the Dockers brand. Yeah,
Oh,
like
okay.
just like not good stuff. It isn't
I,
good.
I thought you were
No,
doing
it
like
was horrible.
artwork for like like on
Oh
custom
no,
Air Force
no, it was
Ones or
nothing
like that.
cool.
And well, I'm gonna just say is that even in those areas where you don't find like, oh, this isn't like super creative, oh, this doesn't get all this notoriety or exposure, I think it still adds to your experience. And if anything, I'm so glad that it didn't like stifle your creativity. It didn't make you say, you know what, I'm gonna give up, because obviously we're talking about your past, and you're so successful now. So now here we've talked, you've experimented in graphic design, you're now doing video game design, and you worked for a studio doing work. And I believe that studio, you said it was what was the name of the studio? It was
Big Blue Bubble.
Big Blue, yes. Now, and these were games, but I think that this is where I think that you're able to think like in an animated style. You're thinking about, even though you didn't do classical animation where you're doing frame by frame stuff, you already have the expertise and the knowledge that you learned from Sheridan. So it's completely applicable to it. And I think what you told me yesterday is that you became so, I want to say, successful there, that they started giving you more and more responsibility, and that kind of like shaped your opinion about that industry as well before you did your own. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So yeah, it was just, it was like one of these things. It was a small studio. I think there was, when I started there, I think I was around the 14th or 15th employee. And they ended up becoming about 55, I think, by the time I left. Yeah, it was a good opportunity for me to like, sort of grow within a company. I came in as a junior artist and then became like a lead artist. And then I became like a creative director for their casual division. And then I started producing games as well. And I was just juggling multiple balls and wearing a lot of hats. And it was stressful. It was very stressful.
So stressful that you decided to do your own thing. That you decided to like.
Well, that was the thing, but it was like stress because I didn't really enjoy the games I was making. Because like when you work for another company, you have to make the games they want to make. Right. And at that time, it was a big boom for casual games that were geared towards like 40-year-old plus women, and that was like the games I had to make, and it was a little bit like not as fulfilling as a game developer. But I'm like, I've developed these skills. It'd be nice to be able to apply them to games that I want to make. So after leaving that company, shortly after, I ended up starting a studio with a friend of mine who was a programmer, and they're called Halfbot, and we made our own games for about 5 years. Or we tried. It was a lot harder than what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to be easy, and
knowing that you did 5 years with another studio, it's like, hey,
yeah. So it was just like a roller coaster ride, that whole experience. Just we had made a game that I was telling you about yesterday that like got stolen. It was a Flash game, and the whole game got ripped off and put on iOS, and that was
people ripping you
steal
off.
My stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And it's kind of it's been a theme throughout my career, actually.
Well, I think that's the thing, is that even though these things have happened, like I said, you've been thrown all this adversity, but you're still creating. In fact, I think we have somebody here in the audience who wanted to get your we'll get right back and talking more about your origin story, but there was a question here from Deepak. Says, hey Derek, can you suggest books other than Arthur Guptill's book to learn inking the way you do? You want to answer that question real quick?
Inking. I never read any inking books.
Self-taught, 100%.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when it comes to inking, a lot of it is just practice, and you get in control of the tool, because inking like with a brush, it just takes like a really steady hand, and you have to be able to control your line. And so that's like most of inking. Like no matter what tool you're using, it really comes down to control. Like nobody who picks it up for the first time, who doesn't draw on a regular basis, understands pen pressure and different little nuances and how to move your hand and try to like get something in one line, because you're not going to be able to like Control Z.
Oh yes. And, Control Z. I like that one.
Not a Control Z function. Now, just to add something real quick, he says he can't probably think of any book to learn how to ink properly. because he maybe didn't read one. But if you go to his website,
Yes,
there
the
is
plug
a said book that you could probably find
by
for
Derek.
style of
Yes, yeah, we're gonna actually talk a little bit about that because Deepak.
Good segue. Good segue.
Yeah, we were actually gonna push this question a little bit later, but just to give you guys a heads up, there are resources that Derek offers through his Patreon or Patreon. I don't know. I totally
Patreon
yeah. account where you can definitely get access to seeing, getting insight in terms of how Derek does his magic with, inking and coloring. That's another thing too, is that Derek does everything. I mean, he does everything from the penciling, the inking, the coloring,
to toy design.
Yeah, toy design. It's like he is he's a jack of all trades, master of all. It's just incredible what he does. But we're gonna talk about his website. I'll drop it in the comments field a little later on. But yeah, there you can see how it happens. There are videos. There are actually books.
We'll definitely put it in the chat. But at any point, if you just put Derek Laufman in, I'm sure you can find his website. It's not going to be hard. I'm pretty sure you put .com at the end of it or something.
Right.
Correctly.
Yeah.
Okay. So now getting back to your origin story. You did Game Boy Advance games. You've done those what you call Flash games, which were the precursors to the iOS games. And now it's like you've been doing this now for 5 years under another studio, 5 years as an independent, as you being the owner of the studio. Yeah. So I get the sense this is where you're going back to hey, I got to get back into comics. That was my first passion, right? I mean, is that what happened?
Well, actually, so there was a bit of that. So a good friend of mine brought me back into comics. His name is Sean Cheeks Galloway.
Yes, love that guy.
Yes. Uh-huh. So I had met Cheeks back when I had worked for the publisher that squashed my dreams.
Not be named.
They had that is not be named. Yes. If anybody digs hard enough on the internet, they might be able to find it. But who knows? Who knows? And anyway, they had flown. One of the cool things was working with this independent publishers. They had brought me out to San Diego to help promote this new project we were working on, trying to get sold at the time. So when I was out there, I got to meet Sean when he was coming around with his portfolio. So he came to my booth, which is kind of funny because now I'm just you're so much better than I am now. And but he was just such a nice guy, and he came around to the booth, and I was sitting with another artist who had kind of torn him apart with his portfolio, and I really kind of made me kind of sick to my stomach. Yeah, he was right next to me. I don't want to say who the artist was, but a professional artist who's quite popular today. And it was I just thought he was very harsh. And maybe it was just one of these things where maybe me being really new to the industry, I was just very hopeful. And I'm like, that's not how we should treat people. And going back to when, I met David Finch and he was very complimentary to my horrible work. That helped me be encouraged, and so here I am hearing this guy ripping apart Sean's work, and so I was like, hey, I'm sort of standing next to them because we were sharing the same booth space, and so I was like, hey, I'll check out your portfolio, and Sean was just such a nice guy, and I could see he had talent in there, and we talked a bit about his portfolio and just things maybe you can tweak and stuff, and I was trying to pull on my animation knowledge of classical animation. I'm trying to become what would my teacher say to me, to encourage me to fix this or do this, and try to be constructive as best I could. And anyway, so that's kind of how I got to meet Sean, and then we'd stay in touch on message boards and things like that, back in the day where there's Pencil Jack and Lead Heavy and digital webbings and all those places. And so Sean approached me. This is probably I'm just about I think I'm about 3.5 years into this, half bought my own studio, and we're struggling. I'm looking for freelance work just to stay afloat. I was working on our video game stuff during the day, and then freelancing into the evening, late at night, just to kind of keep the lights on. And so he approached me with this project where he was tasked with doing World of Warcraft Pearls of Pandaria, a graphic novel, and he needed artists to help do layouts for the book. So he told me I got two other artists, and if you can help out, you can each get 35 pages to layout, and then And I was like, oh, this is a good opportunity for me to like kind of get back into comics again without actually getting totally back into comics. And so I'd done a bunch of layouts and pages and stuff. And I guess the other artists who he had sort of brought on to help out weren't turning in stuff fast enough. And he just said, hey, do you want to just do the whole thing? So like I was like, oh, wow, okay.
That
like
was
124 pages, like I had to lay out. And so yeah, it was like my first kind of like dip, 124 pages
124.
that I had to lay out. And that was fun. And especially because at the beginning, we didn't even have the designs finalized. So I'm like kind of just like guessing what these characters might look like as I'm like plotting it. You know, I'm using the script and, you know.
It's just amazing because, you know, you wanted to get back into comics. And instead of just easing your way in, you have this opportunity, and now you're doing 124 pages. It's like go big or, you know, go home type thing. It's like,
well, and I didn't feel as pressured because it was just the rough layouts. Like I'm not doing, you know, I'm not drawing the whole thing. It's not the pressure of drawing the whole thing. I think that maybe just helped ease me in. Because, you know, if like something wasn't working or something, we could change it. And like, you know, it wasn't like the pressure wasn't like too huge or anything.
Still 124
pages. And so that was great. Yeah. And then, you know, after that, I had worked with Sean on a few more things. Like he had his Table Taffy studio.
Yes, I remember that.
And I did work for him on that. And we worked together for about 2 years. And that was sort of to help me transition out of my half-bought studio into freelancing. I was just picking up more freelancing work. And by the time I like sort of been done with my game studio, I was almost at a point where I could sustain myself with freelance. But then things kind of blew up shortly after that when I started doing chibi art.
Yeah,
sort of my chibi art, because I've been doing video games for so long, I didn't know what chibi art was. Yeah, like stuff like that. So I didn't know what a chibi was. I just knew game sprites because, you know, when you're drawing your little sprites on the screen, you draw their heads big so they read. And you know, so it's all about strong silhouettes and big heads. So I was like, I just want to kind of apply this to like popular characters that I like. And I started, I think one of the first ones I did was like a Deadpool, and it kind of like just blew up on social media. And I was like, oh, I'm like kind of like people are responding to this, so I'll do more. And so I just started doing more and more. And over the course of like a year, I did like probably 30 or 40 characters and just posting on social media and stuff like that. And then I got approached by an art director at Marvel to ask if I wanted to do their superhero adventure line. So like that line there. So they were looking to rebrand their kids line, and so they brought me in to do that. So
this was your this was like
it was all from the fan art. Yeah. And so that was great, and it was weird because like within a week of that, Hasbro, an art director at Hasbro had reached out to me to do some toy designs, and I was like, oh, weird! It's like weird how everything's kind of clicking. And those are some of the toys I did for Hasbro. So that was one of the first big projects I got to work on, and so it was like everything's just started to click. Like it was a weird little like I don't know what happened. It just sort of like the popularity of maybe the things getting shared in online, the artwork getting stolen here and there, but it was like getting the artwork out there, and was trickling back jobs to me. So
which is great, because I think that's the thing, is like you'd never give up, and you kind of like it was fate. You met Sean, and now you sort of did this fan art, and I think that's important for our audience who are aspiring artists. Is like you don't know what's going to resonate over social media. And sounds like, Derek, you just started doing this at the right time, at the right place, and people noticed it. And that chibi style, very, very popular. I mean, it translates to so many things, and it crosses so many demographics. Everybody from like you think your target market is just little kids, but I'm a big fan of the chibi art style, and seeing how you're able to take that your style and just infuse it into this genre, and it just took off. And I'm just so impressed. Like you said, Marvel, DC, when we saw Star Wars and, Disney, anything that's under the Disney umbrella, it's just incredible that you're doing that. So now you've got to this point now where you have toys now that's been incorporated to it. So Are like people beating down your door now just to like do stuff? Is that
well,
what's
it's
happening?
interesting because when you work for Hasbro and Mattel, you're sort of faceless. Like they don't attach your name to
Oh,
anything. They don't want
yes.
you to share any of that work. So it pays great, but you're sort of a ghost.
Mhm.
And so there is something to be said about that. Like it's nice to get the paycheck,
Yeah.
but you do have that yearning to put something out there that you can
To
actually
be a
share with the world.
creator. Yeah.
So right, so that sort of helped fuel like doing my own things, like just working for companies and sort of not being able to really share a lot of the artwork. It just pushed me to go like, okay, I need to do stuff that I can share.
Yes.
And so just going back to comics a little bit, and again going back to Sean Galloway, he had asked me to help him with like a Batman Black and White short story he was doing. He did an issue of Adventures of Superman that I got to help out on. So this is really Sean just sort of really giving me a lifeline into the comics world, like and it led to me. I got to do a cover for Star Wars Adventures,
Yeah.
like just an alternative cover to like a book I think he was actually illustrating, and so like really just all like thanks to him. Like if he wasn't there, I don't know if I would have got back into comics.
That is
Like
a great
you
story.
need sometimes that a good friend that'll push you and challenge you to like do these things,
And it's okay. I'm going to say this too. It's sort of like everybody says you definitely have to develop a thick skin to take criticism as an artist. But it's just interesting to hear. This is a nice guy story that you talked about, where Sean was actually coming to you because you were tabling, and he got totally destroyed by somebody. You heard the story, and then of course you were relating to like your David Finch experience, and then you like going, "Hey, I'll look at your portfolio," and this became, you guys were on opposite sides of a table reviewing someone else's portfolio, but then you guys became friends, peers, and then you became collaborators. It's like, and it was all based on not tearing somebody down, but just sort of like encouraging, other people to pursue their craft, to hone their skills, and it's paying back in I'm trying to think about spades. There's the word. Here you go. Because now you have these collaboration with Sean, and now you're doing all this great work, and you've hit this, like I said, you've come up with a style that resonates with everybody. But now here we are. You've done. It's. I almost think your career has been kind of like a reverse in a certain way. It's like you did mainstream, and now you want to do doing these. So yeah, go ahead. What were you gonna say?
A fun little full circle story with Sean was just before the pandemic. We got the table next to each other at Toronto Comic Con, and that was just like a really cool moment where like here we are, we've come all this way since like San Diego.
I know you.
It's like, we were friends. I knew he was coming. I knew he was coming, and we specifically set it up so like we'd sit next to each other. But it was like just that moment of being like, here we are. We're on this side of the table together.
Exactly. That is such a great story.
I want to ask a couple of questions before we go to kind of the next element. I think where Gerald is going. Before we go into like indie and how you kind of moved away from the mainstream, a couple of questions. Number one, how do you feel about when you went down, when you were hit a couple of times, like that understanding of getting back up? I think a lot of people get either negative criticism or they get beat up by a pro that they really respect, or they just have like a really bad situation with a creative team that doesn't respect their work or has a bad work ethic or just generally like bad timelines. And that turns them off. Like, I know it was a long kind of return to comics for you, but it did seem like you were always sort of in the sphere of comics, or at least creating. A lot of people would just stop, like, oh, I'm not creating anymore, period. So you always stayed in that sphere. And what was that like for you? And kind of like, what were you thinking about when you decided to keep creating regardless of what people said?
Well, I think at the time it was like, I had a lot of encouragement from my now wife, who I was dating at the time when that whole comic book dream kind of got squashed, and having her support, I think, really helped at that time, and just her encouraging me to keep doing art. And not that I ever really felt that I was going to stop doing art. Like, I think I always knew like I need to draw. Like that never left. Even when the comic thing kind of was dashed, I still was like, well, I have these skills and I do enjoy this art of drawing. So you know, I knew I needed to do something with that skill, and I didn't really feel like I had anything else to fall back on. Like it was like this is what I was meant to be, and so it was just like, you know, trying to get paid to draw was mainly the goal after that, and then it became like, okay, when I was doing the graphic design thing, I'm getting paid to draw, but I don't love it, and then
Right.
the video game thing happens, and I like it more than the shoe stuff for sure. But you know, at some point, I'm getting paid to draw, and it's always like, you know, if I get paid to draw, like this is great. You know, I can't ever not take that for granted. And but at the same time, like, you know, creatively, you start to like sort of, once you're into a place for a while, your creativity feels like it's being like, I wasn't encouraged to go home. Like I didn't feel like going home to draw after working like at a game studio. I just came home and I didn't do anything. I played video games, I watched TV, and research. I felt like those years were kind of wasted.
That was
like
research. That was research. That was research.
Sure, research. Yeah. And but yeah, I kind of was just like, I don't really have a great portfolio that I love. Like after, like, you know, working at this game studio, and like it's okay, but it's not great. And you know, I think you know, so it transitioned from like getting paid to draw to then getting paid to draw what I want, and then drawing what I want and getting paid for it is kind of like that's the shift now in my career. Yeah. Like I want to draw what I want to draw, and then I want to get paid for that.
Exactly. That's
kind
the
of
goal.
The goal.
Yeah.
I think that's the peak.
Yeah,
right
and
now.
That's where I wanted to go with the second question, was with the Chibis, right? So that was where you put something out there. You what was the character? It was what was the character that you put out there?
Deadpool.
Yeah, the Deadpool, right? So the Deadpool like launched, which, you know, a lot of people say, oh, don't do fan art, do this, do that, the other, like do it in your own style and make it picked up. It's an easy way to sort of get seen. So really awesome that you did that. And then your career sort of taken off in another direction once that happened. And as you've been creating all this different content for toys and everything else, Hasbro, whatever it is, when you, at some point, did you start like, say, okay, I got to do my own thing? Now, is this the when you started thinking about moving in a independent, like create your own comic direction? And if so, are you still sort of moving your artwork in a direction that people expect, or are you doing the designs and style that you're looking at, like really kind of grasping on right now?
Yeah, style wise, I think I've always kind of been never satisfied, I think is a good sort of way to say it. I'm always trying to like push myself to maybe tweak something or approach something a little differently. But certainly, like, you know, so Ruinworld came basically during that time when I was sort of finally pushing myself to do comics again. I had been afraid to write a comic. That was always, I think, the thing that held me back, like probably during my tenure, like away from comics. It was like this fear to maybe write my own stories. Like I never felt like, it probably goes back to my academics not being great, and I never really had the confidence to like write my own stuff. And I probably didn't have the maturity either. Like I always felt like I was a bit of a late bloomer in that regard. And so I think later, you know, at this point, I guess I'm around, because I'm 44 now. So I'm going to say I'm 39, early 40s, when I decide to finally get off my butt and just try and write something. And, you know, and it was like, you know, it's like anything, I guess, like, you know, when you're finally ready to make a move, you've probably been thinking about it for a long time before you make a big shift like that. Like to pour everything into a comic, that's like something that trickles around in your brain for a long time. And you're like, can I do this? Can I do this? You're self-doubt, you know, and, but I just said to myself, you know what, just draw a page, like draw one page, write a page, and just see if I can do that. And that was my goal. I was like, with Ruinworld, I literally was like, I will draw one page and I'll make it sort of look finished. And then if I can do that, then I can do more pages. And that's kind of how Ruinworld started. So that was my first little, I hadn't written a whole story yet. I just wrote literally these characters. If you go back to the first page of that comic, I don't know if I shared the first page with you. Yeah. It's the one just before that. And
I'm trying my there. see.
Next
This
one,
page?
actually.
Man,
Next
it's
page.
broke.
The one, that's the first page. So this is the first page I draw. So I literally just, the one with the keep.
The one with the keep, the other one.
Oh, okay.
The one you had up a second.
The one you were just on it.
My computer is getting really sluggish for some reason. Is this the page?
Okay.
Or...
Yeah, that's the one.
That's the one.
Okay, that's the one. All right, here we go.
Okay, don't move. No.
Okay,
And,
yeah, I'm gonna
so
keep it right here.
So I guess you could say like this is the page that launched my independent comic career, because it was this page that I had drawn having the characters banter back and forth and sort of starting to get a feel for like who they were. And I'd sort of done these designs. I designed these characters to be villains in a different sort of like side idea I had. I'd always had little ideas, but never fully fleshed out like a full page. And so by this point, I sort of queued up the characters that were villains before, and started having to do a banter, and that's pretty much what set off like the whole thing. So I don't know, like it's always weird. Like I don't know how other people start their comic careers, but do they start with just one page, or like I don't know.
Well, I think they do. They start out because you have to. I think as a creator, or as a wannabe indie creator, you got to put your first foot forward, and you start with that one page. And that's why I was impressive when you told me, even though you didn't do full pages, that 128 page layout gig that you got, that was like that was your baptism by fire. And then here, as an indie creator, you just need to put these thoughts, these characters down on paper, and whether you have a definite idea of where those characters are going, it's not even that important at that point. It's just like, got to get it done, got to get it out there, got to get.
Well, I'm going to put a little shade on Derek, because this whole thing, 124 page layout thing. I mean, you cut your teeth on animation. 124 pages. That's like 8 seconds. Like. I'm sure you have done layouts that are a lot more numbers than that. So I'm just giving you a little crap. But yeah, well, 124.
Yeah.
I mean, this is like, I love this. This is this page alone. Like I can see how this can just lock people in. Everything about it is clean. Everything about it is textbook. I mean, the only thing that somebody could be like, oh, wait a minute, where's the camera elevation? Like, you could see that in the wide shot. Like it's absolutely everything is perfect. It's so strategically sound. It's perfectly cinematic. Absolutely just gorgeous. Plenty of room for the text. It reads great. I can see why this is like, this was the thing that worked.
The expressions,
well,
color.
I owe a lot to Understanding Comics by Scott McCloud. I read Understanding Comics back when I was, I think, 19. And I wasn't a great academic kid, so I read maybe like a quarter of the book and then skimmed through, looked at all the pictures to try to pick up as much as I could, because I wanted to get back to probably a video game I was playing. But a lot of his lessons really stuck in my head, like even subconsciously. To this day, I find that like the pacing and the way that like panels are set up, a lot of that just goes back to reading that book early on.
Yeah,
great book.
Yeah, that's a book for people.
That definitely will give everybody to the fundamentals of it. And you know what? We're approaching almost an hour, and I want to get to like the nitty gritty. And I think which is where we get to see the magic happen. Do some live drawing,
sure.
And but I think that's still going to give us a lot of room to actually dig deeper into your indie creations and telling more of your story at this phase in your career. So what I'd like to do right now is talk about your latest IP, which is Crimson Fall. And I want to keep on saying Crimson Falls for some reason, and like Niagara Falls,
right.
but I think that there's you can tell us a little bit more about what the meaning behind Crimson Fall. There's some deep meaning behind it, but I think what we would like to do is let's start the live drawing part of this, the first challenge, and that'll give you a chance to give an overview of what Crimson Fall is and who these two characters that we're going to be live drawing. The first one we're going to be doing is this character, Father McKellen. Now, this particular short story is going to be in an upcoming, currently crowdfunding campaign that's going on right now, which is with Raid Studios. It's the anthology. And we'll talk about how you can contribute and support this particular campaign. It's loaded with top talent. and you know, Derek is a part of that as well. And here we have Father McKellen. So if you would like to draw along with us, please screen capture this right now. Let me zoom in a little bit. We have a couple different pictures of him, and I just like this little sequence that you did here at the bottom here. But Father McKellen is here. If my computer would just, I'm getting really lag going on right here. But yes, nice. Screen capture this if you want to draw along with us, and we will get ready to do our drawing challenge. And I'll let Joe, handle the timekeeping and stuff like that. So let me get my art cam up here.
Yeah. What are we doing? And we're doing 10, 15 minutes?
We'll do 15 minutes, and then unless Derek wants to add extra time, it's up to him. But we'll start with 15 minutes, and we're gonna probably show mostly his camera, and just let us know in the chat if you're gonna draw along with us, and we'll be happy to show it. You just post it to our sister page, which is the Art Show on Facebook. So here we go. It is 1:50 right now. Let's start the clock, and I'm gonna bring up Derek's camera, and let's see. And I click on it.
What's going on, Phil? What's going on, Phil? Thanks, Lee. Rice. Lee said he's going to go ahead and follow Derek up on IG. So go ahead and check him out.
All right.
But yeah, good stuff to see you, Phil.
Okay. All right. So thanks, you go for it, Joe. You can handle a question.
All right. So I'm watching the clock. I don't know what I'm going for. You guys are drawing. Do you have a drawing? You got a drawing camera up there?
Yeah, I'll load it up. But you go ahead and start the question in.
All right, so my biggest thing about Crimson Fall, how did that sort of start happening with you and the studio? How did that conversation happen specifically with these characters? And how did you end up was there a character designer that was pushing these characters on you, or did you end up just going?
No. So no, this was so I had been developing Crimson Fall since spring of last year. Since I'd done a lot of all ages books before this, I was sort of just trying to think about stories I could tell that are a little more adult. And so Crimson Fall was sort of that scratching that itch to tell a little bit more adult stories. And the way I kind of got sort of connected with Raid Studio was they had reached out and just said, hey, do you happen to have, a short story? Because we're putting together this anthology. And I just happened to have this 6 pages that were almost completed that I've been working on since the last spring. And I kind of got hung up on the story while I was, developing it. And them sort of giving me a bit of a nudge sort of was it gave me that little bit of a push to go, okay, you know what, I need to revisit this. And so that's kind of what sort of got me back into Crimson Fall was having this short story featured in the Raid anthology. And and then so basically so going back to sort of Crimson Fall, it's been a lot of things for me as I've been developing it. It's one of those things where I'm all over the place when I'm writing a story, and even to this day, I'm still not 100% sure what it is. I feel like I'm always discovering more about the thing I'm doing while I'm doing it. It's it opens doors in my brain of what is this character thinking at this moment, or what is this character doing, or what is their past, and what does that lead, and it's it just starts opening doors and doors and doors. So I'm always a little bit, maybe it's a good thing, maybe it's a bad thing. But I'm always just kind of reinventing things as I go. So this particular story settled when I decided I've been a huge fan of Hellboy for a long time. And pretty much my entire, since I was a teenager and I discovered Hellboy and Mike Mignola. And I had listened to a couple of interviews with Mike Mignola, and he talked about how Hellboy became a platform for him to tell stories that he wanted to tell, because he was really into monsters and ghost stories and all these things. And I'm like, you know what? That's just sounds just what I need in my life. Is I need a vehicle for my ideas and these fantasy, more adult stories and things. And I've always been a huge fan of fantasy and monsters and demons and all these things. And so Crimson Fall became my sort of Hellboy, if you will. Not so much revolved around one character, but more just like a world. And to me, like, at least right now, and this could change, but the Crimson Fall is essentially like a demon world or a hellscape, like where evil lurks and, you know, things come from, like, you know, all bad things come from the Crimson Fall. And
okay.
it's sort of, I guess,
yeah.
So that's
the meaning.
That's where the name sort of came from. And it's you know, I think that's essentially what
right.
And I'm still trying to figure out, like, that's the cool thing, is like I'm still trying to figure out and discover what this world's all about. But this particular short story had revolved around a monastery that had been attacked, and this sellsword named Gunross has been hired to kind of come investigate. And Father McKellen is involved with the church, and not this particular monastery, but he knows people at the monastery, and he's trying to get the bottom of like who's attacked this monastery. The whole monastery's been wiped out, just massacred, and they're trying to discover like what's going on here. So my short story in Raid is basically a precursor to kind of like what is happening. And it's not the full story, but it's just kind of like a tease, if you will.
Teaser.
So,
and I think that was what the thing that you had talked to me about, and when we were talking about our shared admiration of Mike Mignola, is that he didn't really have like everything fleshed out. Like he didn't know what where Hellboy's story was going to go, and I think that kind of like like I don't need to have all the answers yet. I get my story out there. Yeah. Is that true? Like you want to like talk about that?
No, 100%. No, 100%. I think that's sometimes you just need to hear that. Like even though it seems like, I think for the longest time when you see something that is on the page, you just assume it's been totally thought through, everything's planned out, and everything's been plotted, and it's not always the case. And especially with Hellboy and with Mike Mignola talked about, the original design of Hellboy looks nothing like how Hellboy ended up being. I think that's kind of the just a little bit of encouragement to just like go ahead, just go ahead and start doing your world and figure it out as you go. And I like that. That excites me. Like it excites me because it's the stories I haven't come up with yet that excite me. And that's what keeps me going. Like, what new thing can I come up with, and what new adventure?
Well, it seems like what you did though too. Like, so one of the things to remember, like, or to actually sort of clarify with you is, you look for a catalyst to at least start the characters off with, a launching point, with that element that happened there and the deaths that happened or they were missing. And then you allowed it to go somewhere. So I guess my question is when you were writing this, what were some key parts that you were like, okay, I think we're generally going in this direction. And if you could even discuss the small sort of like, hey, in the distance, this is going to happen, something like this. So we're going to work our way there. I have no idea how I'm going to get there, but I know it needs to go in this direction at some point. Maybe it'll change, but that's what I'm thinking about right now.
Okay. So I wanted to have, the initial story idea was that there's this sort of like involvement with the church, and they like a conspiracy to sort of hide the fact that they had sort of released demons into the world. That was sort of the crux of like how this thing, and that was sort of like the demons were attacking, and that was kind of, I think that was like sort of the idea. And then, but it's sort of changed a bit now where I'm not so sure I may get to that story, but I like the idea of just more a world where demons and monsters exist. And I'm more interested in telling the short stories that exist within that space. And
100%.
so whether it's like this kind of thing where like, Father McKellen and is discovering this for the first time, Duncross seems to have a little bit more knowledge than he's letting on. And that's sort of like, he's the sort of like more veteran monster hunter kind of guy, and McKellen is more of the I'm learning about this as I go, and the world isn't exactly what I thought it was, kind of thing, and so. But like, and that's where I kind of get excited about Crimson Falls, because I have other characters like outside of these that I have ideas for stories for them, and that involve monsters and demons and ghosts and all these things. So I'm just like, you know what, this becomes my platform that I can tell these stories, and and I just, that excites me, because I get bored easy, and I think if I tried to tell one big long story, I would probably get bored. Like, it's just like Ruinworld was different. It was a 5-issue arc that ended pretty much like a definitive ending that could have been more if Boom had wanted to do more, but they didn't. That's okay. And but for like Crimson Fall, I just like the idea of it being short stories. So that's kind of my focus right now. It's like, and I'm working on an actual like full-fledged short story right now involving Gunross and one of the predicaments he gets himself into.
Nice. Yeah, no, I totally get it. We everybody out there, if you're doing the art challenge, make sure you put it in art show. Follow us on Facebook for the art show. Go ahead and put your art challenge drawing on there, and we will bring it up live during the show. That being said, this is a treat. You guys are getting the full process, not only finishing one character, now we're going on to the second one from Derek. So it's beautiful work. We'll have to get surprised by Gerald's. I think he's having some computer issues. So
it's not.
Oh no,
no. But yeah. So hello, Mythic. Thanks for coming. And if you guys are enjoying this, go ahead and make sure that you're hitting the subscribe button and keep seeing all of our content every week. But yeah. So first off, okay, are you going to bring in a whole new piece here with his cane turning into the hammer, or are you just going to do like a small piece?
Yeah, I'm just drawing. I think the hammer is something that like at some point he's gonna find. It'll become like a weapon of his. It was sort of my imagining of him like almost like turning from like a priest into like a wizard, almost like I almost picture him like at the beginning he's very naive, but then later he becomes a lot more knowledgeable of some of the holy powers that he can wield, and so that's. Against the dark. So like that's kind of how I envisioned him sort of like, over time. And I don't know if I'm going to show that arc or not, or maybe he just shows up one day and he's a little more knowledgeable than he was the last time.
Right.
But because it's not necessarily going to be like a full, like, telling of his arc or anything like that. But that's kind of like from like some of the like concept art I had done. That was sort of what I was thinking about him, is like that character that sort of discovers he's got a little more power than he thought he had.
Right. How dark are you taking this one? How dark do you think you might go with it?
Yeah, that's always a fun balance. I have 2 kids that are 7 and 10, and they like to peek in on what Dad's drawn. And sometimes it just gets a little, gruesome at times. And I'm like, but I've always been drawing books that they can read, and this isn't necessarily something that I want them looking at. Plus, there's going to be like cursing in it and things like that aren't in my other books. So I'm thinking like, it's more like it's probably more violent than Hellboy. But still, it's got a cartoon flair to it, because that's what I have that animation sort of. I like cartoons. I don't think I've seen Ex Machina. Vox Machina.
Vox Machina, yeah. So it's got that cartoon vibe to it, but it's very dark. Right. It's very gruesome, and they deal with some adult themes, and the humor is very adult. So you haven't seen it yet, but I watched it and I absolutely loved it. I absolutely loved it. It was really good stuff.
Yeah, it's fantastic. So I guess that's kind of like a little bit more in the world I like playing in, like, because I like adding humor and stuff into my books, but and it's sort of like taking away from some of the dark elements. And if anybody reads that short story in the Raid anthology, you get a real sense of sort of my dark sense of humor, and Duncross is sort of weird, blunt take on the world and how things are.
Yeah.
You know, Father McKellen in that is a little more optimistic and probably a little more righteous than maybe what he will become later. But yeah, it's I like characters that have an edge to them, you know, and have a little bit of depth. And you know, I'm always trying to think about like what their whole story is, even if I never tell it. You know, I still want to kind of know what it is in my head. You know,
all right,
what
let's go ahead and do
trauma have they experienced?
let's go ahead and do digital pencils and regular pencils down.
Oh, what is it over
Tablet
already?
pens and regular pens down. Whatever you
Time
like,
okay.
man. All right. I mean, we got Derek's piece up. I don't think we've got anything in art show right now. If you guys want to put it in later, as you would, or if you view this broadcast after it's live, go ahead and put it in the art show, and we'll make sure that we are seeing it there at least. Yeah. So let's go ahead and see Gerald's piece. Go ahead and bring it up. First off, Derek, if you haven't seen this yet, Gerald, you've been drawing the whole time. I hope you did multiple characters or just to try to keep up.
Oh, look at what! Oh my gosh! I always am so impressed because I have to resist the temptation to look and see what our guests are drawing, and
Yeah,
Derek is just so skilled. He did 2 drawings of.
well, I mean, I
Father
love the
McKellen.
fact that, like you talked about, you said, you know, one of the things that good character designers understand, like the first thing you have to know is silhouette. Like your silhouette has to like just own the space, and I would know that who this is from a quarter mile away. You know, it's very cool. Like I could see how all of your characters would be able to fit. So that's very
cool.
Oh, nice. It's got.
That's awesome.
Oh, sorry, my camera just. I don't know what's going on.
It came up.
It came up. Sorry, we were talking about Derek's.
No, that's fine. It's fine.
That's
but,
fantastic.
I want to say this reminds me of not. It's like the animation from like 1986. Which
So
one?
like
not the Disney, but
like
like
Sword in
the
the Stone, like Sword in the
yeah,
Stone,
a little bit of
maybe,
Sword in the
or those type of.
Stone, maybe a little bit of like Last Unicorn or whatever. Like this kind of like.
Oh
this
yeah, I
sort of
remember
vibe
that.
to it. Yeah, that's cool, man.
Well, I got to tell you that Derek, why I was drawn to your art is because it just has such life in it. It's so fun to see it, and it makes me think of forms and shapes differently. You know, Joe was talking about silhouettes and shapes. It's like you really have to have a mastery of those shape language in order to really come up
that's huge
with great characters. And that's what I see in your artwork. And I really, when I was doing my drawing, I just wanted to look at shapes, focus on shapes. That's one of the things that I'm really taking, you know, when I look at your artwork, you know, what I see. But yeah, so fun. So no one was able to draw.
Yeah, nobody added along. We're gonna have to push this later. I don't know what's going on.
Yeah,
not a lot of active views today, but it's all right.
It's okay.
We'll plug it through.
You're right. Let's move. Let's move to the second.
Yes. Yeah, so we're going to go into the next one. I didn't want to add this because I'm still sort of new to Restream. So let me add this real quick. Let's see here. Show your presentation to viewers, local video, share video file. Oh my gosh. How do I share? You know what we're going to do? Because you guys already know. All right. I wanted to share the image, and I'm pretty sure everybody knows this. I decided to pull a character from maybe one studio you haven't actually worked with, but it is a video game character, and it is on TV. It's a soon-to-be TV show, and then we're going to combine that element also with your chibi design. So this is going to be a Master Chief chibi character design.
Interesting.
I don't think you've worked with.
Should I pull up my Master Chief chibi?
Did you do one? Did I miss it? Oh no! He's like, I already did that shit. Get out of here.
And we're talking about Derek now. Derek has pretty much done it.
Oh my gosh! I didn't realize you did one.
Yeah.
I'll take it all back. I'm gonna go cry. All right, let's see what you did, and maybe we'll go on another character in that same universe.
Okay. Let me see if I can just find this real quick.
That's so funny that he did it already.
I was like, I looked through. I was like, oh man, I don't think he's done one of this. There it is. Look it out. Okay, we're definitely not going to do Master Chief. All right, What were the three?
Sorry to throw a curveball.
No, it's fine.
And actually, to be honest, that helmet was a pain in the ass. I mean, pain in the ass.
I'm actually glad that he did it because
Yeah.
I don't know if I could have pulled that
All
off.
right, so how about this?
crazy.
Let's do what were the three characters in the original? The three main villains that were like in the chairs all the time. What were they called? They were the Covenant
the prophets.
Prophets, yeah.
The
Yeah.
prophets.
Let's pull a prophet up. Let's get a reference for a prophet. I'd love to see them broken down the same style. And I can't bring it up because it won't let me.
They were
share my
definitely
screen.
unique alien
Yeah,
species.
just give me one of the prophets. It doesn't matter which one. Sorry, Gerald. I don't.
I
don't
get
have
to
the
Google
accent.
this, right? Because I'm
Why can't I?
Yeah, my computer is like so slow.
All right,
right
I think
now,
I got it now.
and
All right,
can't-
I figured it out.
I'm
Sorry.
trying to find it,
I'll bring it up. I'll bring it up. I think I figured it out.
Okay.
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 All right, one second. We'll be all right. All right. Let's get a visual that somebody could actually work with here. All right. Well, that's a toy. I don't want to bring up a toy. that's no bueno. There we go. All right.
So just for the record, Derek, you have not done a chibi prophet, right?
No.
No, okay, good.
I just want to make sure.
You probably would. I should have led with
Gonna
that.
make sure.
I should have asked that question. What haven't you done? I was like, all right, I don't need to have every single. All right, I think we've got. I'm trying to get one where we don't have a ridiculous amount of advertisement popping up. I think we're good now. Un momento, almost there. No, wrong button. I'm back. Oh, dead silence. I don't know if I can.
It's suspense. It's suspense.
So what am I going to bring up? I have it up. I don't know why. Oh, here it is. All right. You guys see it?
No.
Nope, you don't see it. It's shared. Here we go. Let me. If I double click on it, how do I make it come in?
There it is.
Can you bring it in? No, I can't talk with you. Bring it in. I think you're the one that owns the space. All I can do is remove the source. All right.
Okay. Sluggish computer. Why is this?
Oh no, yeah, we're not. Bull from YouTube said don't bring up a drawing. We're not bringing up a drawing. It will be an image that's specifically from the game.
It's just a reference.
There we go. All right.
Is it on the screen?
Oh, jeez.
Yeah. So that's
yeah. You can kind of see what it looks like.
Yeah. Let's. I know.
Can you
that's the
zoom in. I know they have these weird, like, long necks, but their faces are very flat, and then they got these crowns on their head.
Yeah, you should be able to see it better now.
Yeah, and they sit on these like floating thrones, and they have these big headdresses that make you think of like I don't know, like
Could you pick something more difficult?
Absolutely,
because the
you made me have a curveball. Let me see if I can. I'll give you guys a.
No, it's fine. I'll work with it.
We can do it. We'll roll with it. Their headdresses remind me of like.
You might watch us fail in real time.
But I'm thinking that their headdresses kind of remind me of like the Catholic clergy, like the very headdresses like the Pope would wear or something like that. So
yeah.
So anyway, of course, with an extraterrestrial alien vibe to it. All right, so hey, we're gonna challenge Derek, and I'm just going to like tag along.
All right, go ahead and pop my other screen up just to give one more screenshot for people. It's a little bit better for everyone to see.
Okay. Let's see if
there you go.
Does it show up?
Yeah, it's
up. That's better.
Yeah.
Can you leave that up?
Yeah. Leave it up. Everyone just keep drawing, and I'll pop
Okay,
around.
yeah, we can actually we can see a little bit. We can see Derek's camera there in the upper corner. Yeah, we'll leave this up for a little bit.
The only problem is I don't have any controls over this freaking restream, so I can't pop around to different art. So
we'll
just have to make it work. We'll just have to make it work. We'll just have to make it work.
Okay. All right, let's just go ahead and just start the challenge. We'll have 15 minutes. It's 2:15, so 2:30. Let's go from there. Chibi style.
Actually,
the
this guy's headdress isn't too big.
Okay.
So I find like whenever I'm drawing something, especially if it's going to be like chibi, you got to get the important elements in there, and the silhouette is so key. And I'm going to use the angle that he's got here because I'm not going to try to draw this complicated thing from a different angle right now on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
But trying to get those shapes in there is key. And then I'll draw the head almost like more of a regular size to start, and then I'll blow it up.
Mm. So I got a quick question. Do you do traditional anymore, or do you just do digital?
I do whenever I do commissions. I do those traditional. I sketch them digitally, and then because I'm so messy, I'm like this kind of messy when I'm doing pencils, and I just can't make out what I do. I think my eyes aren't great either, so if I have like just a big scribble mess on a page, I really struggle with it. And so yeah, I find that like drawing digitally saves me a lot of headaches, and then I print it out in like a light blue onto like a Bristol, and then I ink traditionally, and I'll do like an ink wash on that. I did though the Witch of Wickerson, because I did it for Inktober. I inked that entire book traditionally, so that was a fun challenge, and I'd like to do it again. It's just time. Like I think it's sometimes a little bit quicker to just do things digitally, and when you're pressed for time.
Right. And I guess for like it keeps you on your toes. So like when you go to cons and you have to do like live drawing traditionally, and I think there's some people really like.
Quickly, actually. Yeah, when I'm at a con, I don't do drawings because I'm usually. I might start now that I'm going to get back into cons again, and I'm thinking about not selling any fan art. That's my sort of
your goal
new direction, because I've been getting away from fan art for a while and sort of pushing my own IPs. So I think I'm going to end up having to do more actual sketches on the spot to sort of make ends meet at those cons. Before it was just like when you're selling fan art, the chippies would just kind of go like crazy, and I didn't have time to do anything else except for like sell.
Right.
But I'm not. I think it'll be different when I'm selling my own stuff.
Well, I think you can probably.
Sorry, my apologies. I was gone. Some random guy showed up with his buddy. Adult male was like, "Hey, I want to walk around the property and look at it. Are you the owner?"
What?
Renting?
That's always a nice question.
I got a call because they wanted me to do a painting inspection to like paint the house. I said, "Okay, I will have my rental owner, like have the guy who owns the house, call me directly, or whoever called you, have them call me and verify who they are." And he was like, "Well, how do I get around?" I was like, no, you're not doing anything until I'm like, he's like, "Well, I gave you my business card." I'm like, "Oh, you have a business card. Wow. That proves who you are." Like, and then he got all mad because I closed the door, and he was like, "I'm sorry. Like, I don't know who you are. You're not walking around the property. Like, what are you doing?"
It's crazy.
Like, that's nuts. Sorry.
It's a likely scam.
Yeah. I like that we have this thing up, so it's a little bit of a surprise of what Derek's going to pull out of his power hat here. So now that we have the Halo brand is about ready to be this like big TV thing. So who's Microsoft going to make their toys from? Like, I'm just trying to figure out who Derek is going to make this toy line for when they need to sell product.
To be honest, I would probably, if they had toys that like I would have been working on it already. You
Well, that's
usually
fair
do
point.
things like at least a year in advance, or one of the cool things is sometimes I'll get a look at properties like while they're still in development.
Yeah.
I've seen like actors in roles that they end up not being in. I'm not allowed to say any of that, but what it is. But little things like that, I get a little glimpse sometimes of some of this behind the scenes stuff, which is kind of cool.
Well, sometimes I've noticed a couple of properties they've gotten concerned. I think the toy business, and you can correct me 100% if I'm 100% wrong. This is just from the outside looking at, outside looking in. It does seem like because of the damage of some properties and toys, and if they sell or not, like we saw with the Mandalorian, almost as if they're getting to the point now where they're waiting to see what hits and what works before they start designing.
Right.
So I was just curious have you seen that from your end? If you've gotten some warnos, it's like, hey, this might be coming down the chute. You may do this design. We'll see where we're at.
No, by the time it reaches me, they're usually
they've decided.
Fully. They're at least going to start. Because I get in a lot of ground level. A lot of the stuff I design never sees market. It's amazing how many products will kind of make it through the pipeline and then just get like canceled before that ever goes to production. That was something I was never really aware of, just how many things like never make it past the drawing room floor. And I've even had products that like seemed like they were just going to get made and then suddenly just got canceled. Like, so you just never really know. And because I'm not, directly involved, I'm just sort of like a designer here and there that they just hire on a freelance basis. It just sort of, I don't really think too much about it. Just once in a while, I'll walk into a toy store with my kids and see something I did on the shelf.
Do you feel like
one of the cool things of?
Oh, go ahead. Keep on. Go ahead and finish your thoughts.
I was going to say, like, one of the cool things is like of doing the branding artwork is that you actually get to see your actual artwork on packaging and things like that. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's the graphic designer in you, sort of like I got this.
Yeah, it's just cool to have a box. You see the box on the shelf and you're like, oh, that's my Spider-Man on there. If you go to like Disney Plus, they use my artwork for like one of the shows. The kids shows on there, so it's just kind of cool. My kids are flipping by. I'm like, hey, there's Dad's art, and they're like, we don't care.
It's like, Dad, we already saw that. It's like we saw that months ago. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Do you feel like since you're doing all this stuff in advance, do you feel like things get spoiled for you? And sometimes like it's like I can't be surprised like the rest of the world when something gets released because I'm privy to like even like if it's prototypes and stuff that doesn't see the light of day.
Right.
You kind of like maybe see character reveals that nobody would know about.
Yeah, sometimes. I remember there was like a big sort of thing that got revealed for Avengers, and then it never actually happened. And I was like, oh, okay. I still won't even say what it is. All the NDA stuff I signed is very strict. But, that was just, little things like that. But, I don't, it's not like that's all I do. It's just every once in a while, there's just something like that comes along yeah, I mean, it's not a big deal. There was some stuff with like Star Wars early on, like some of the newer movies and stuff. I got to see some designs of things ahead of time because I was doing, some ships or whatever, different things, and you kind of get a little glimpse. So it's kind of cool.
Right. So were you a big Halo nerd like on the Xbox? Like back, you said you played a lot of video games. Were you a PlayStation guy?
Halo was a big one. No, Halo was a pretty big one. I had an Xbox. I was an Xbox kid for when Xbox versus PlayStation 2. I was the Xbox kid for a good amount of time until I could afford to get a PS2 as well. But nowadays I'm more of a PlayStation kid, I guess. So
the operative word is you got to say kid. You're still a kid, right? You still can find time to. And now you have your own kids. So like, are you like, now that you're your creator, it's like, you know what, you're gonna have to get your mandatory video game time in. No,
No, they play a lot of games. It's kind of crazy. They're better than me at games, which is just nuts. Like my one son who's 10 is like a Rocket League like champion something level, and I'm like, you're 10, and like he just destroys me. And we try to like play together, and he just like give me dirty looks, and I'm like missing the ball. And
is he giving you like, is he trash talking you? It's like, Dad, you're
he'll get real upset if we're losing and it's my fault.
You're cramping my style.
And he'll make jokes of like, they're like, I bet they think that like you're the kid and I'm the adult. Like he's so good compared to me.
Well, you know what? I can't even.
I mean, we're coming up on time, guys. Give everyone 3 more minutes. Okay. 3 more minutes.
3 more minutes. All right. But yeah, it's like I can't enjoy playing multiplayer games that allow you to like play with, not against the AI, but against other people, because basically I'm just cannon fodder. You come in there and I die.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty much, I help somebody else's stats.
And also just like, I can't let my kids be exposed to that. Like, it's just, in particular with Rocket League, I realized I hadn't disabled chat, and my son was like involved in some of these chats, and I'm like, man, these people are vicious. Like, it's brutal. And I'm like, you should not be exposed to this, because he'd come upstairs and be like all upset, and I'm like, what are you so upset for? And like, he's like, somebody was saying something. Yeah. I'm like, oh, somebody's saying stuff to you, like you're communicating with these people. I'm like, that's not good. So I had to turn that off. And they're not allowed to have any communication with those people online. Are just vicious. It's not a happy place.
That's sad. Yeah.
So
I've never really drawn chibi style. This is like a whole new thing to me.
Yeah, this was more of a challenge for Gerald.
I think wants to make me is like, because you know what, whatever you do, you could scribble like on an end and it would just look great, So all right, so we got
good. I'm gonna make this head a little bigger.
All right. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is I love whenever I get a chance to be on the show, I love watching just the process from the artists, the creators, seeing how you guys sort of break down your elements and then make adjustments. I love it.
Yeah, like for me, it's a lot of draw over. I'm not one of these type of artists and just go straight to the line. There's a few artists out there that you'll see them just like a blank page and a pen, and they go, and you're like, I can't even fathom like that style of doing things. So I'm very much a process person. I think that's part of my animation background as well. It's just, when we're doing like animated cells and things like that, like you would draw on top of your drawing constantly, like animating through rough, like building upon the rough, adding to the rough, redrawing, drawing again. Like, so that's a lot of like my process is that sort of process. So I'm very much a proponent of, doing the construction work underneath and then building upon it. So like my construction is weak. I always tell that to like my patrons and stuff. I'm like, you need to have a strong foundation to your drawing or it all falls apart. And that's, so you if you don't know, like you can tell right away, like sometimes like if somebody's character looks like they're kind of like a melting, like their skin's melting off their bodies, or like the things aren't sitting right, or the character is kind of like weird distortion, it's because you didn't have a strong foundation underneath. So you really have to kind of be able to understand that. And a lot of times, like I'll go back through a drawing once I've drawn it, and I'll do my construction lines again to like then improve on what I did. So like this particular drawing I did now, if I was going to take this to the next step, I would probably flatten this, and then I would make it like a low transparency, and then I would do like sort of a more construction line over top of it to see if I made any mistakes, to see if my shoulder's too high in one place, or if the body connects in the way it's supposed to, and and just make little improvements here and there. But it's all just a process. It's a building, block by block.
Well, Gerald, go ahead and put your pencil down. But so one of the things I dug, even in this rough stage, this development stage of yours, is you threw your shadows in there in a very, very like structured way. It's like, okay, this is how I see the form, like very, very rough, almost as if like the same way you do your lines or the same way you do your development of anything. And I think a lot of like younger artists, developing artists, they have a very hard time understanding that what you're drawing is a 3-dimensional element. It's a round form. It's a square, whatever it is. So they try to learn how to like copy other people's line work, but they can't process the fact that it's a shape and that line is indicating that form. I love the shadow in there because it's just like, okay, this is now you're structuring out the form even a little bit more before you go to that next stage.
I agree.
It took
100%.
me a long time. It took me a long time to wrap my head around shapes, and I still like it's still to this day. I'm still trying to get better at the shapes and understanding of the shapes, and I think that's always going to be a struggle for me. But I slowly just like get better at it the more I do it. Sean Galloway, when I worked with him, he's a master of shapes. Like if you ever want to, like anybody wants to learn about how things fit together in shapes, you go look at his work. He shows a lot of process stuff. And his shapes are masterful, the way he's able to like the way they connect and flow. So, he was huge and helped me out when I was working with him and seeing how he constructed his forms and things like that. And I still to this day like admire the shapes he's able to pull off. So, that's just part of it. It's just, like that it's all about that structure underneath. It's huge.
And I to follow up on what Joe said, it's like this is what I liked about your Topps Star Wars cards that you did, is because you would have you could see the process. You did like the rough, then you did a more refined inks, and then you had the final. And just in this example here, I'm studying it right now. It's like you have these rough lines, and it's just 2 tones. You just put some gray tones in there to like show where shadows would fall, and it immediately creates those shapes. It gives depth to volume to what you've drawn, and it's.
Well, it's almost like me trying to make sure the shapes are there. Like I'm trying to like in my brain go like, okay, even if I didn't draw the shape properly, if I kind of block in with the shadow, kind of where the shape should be, and then that helps with the next steps of just like
it does.
And then also like for the final piece, I can use it as reference when I'm dropping in shadows on the final piece, just because a lot of times I'll shade for form and not for lighting, and there's sometimes like especially when you're doing design work. You're not so concerned about where the light's coming from. You're just kind of trying to define the form.
The shape,
So that's why like a lot of this process comes from that.
It looks sweet, and I like the attitude. It's like you captured his. I'm like wondering what he's saying. It's like he's like saying somebody didn't get me my sandwich. Where's my sandwich?
No, he's saying no one's killed the Master Chief yet. He's trying to figure out who's the next person needs to get excommunicated from the order or whatever.
All right. Well, get me my sandwich, and then you can kill the Master Chief.
Yeah.
That
sandwich
looks
first.
Awesome.
Silence, bring me my milk.
All right.
I'll bring it back. All right. Let's see Gerald's attempt at this.
Yeah, at Chibi
this design style.
All right. I hit the button. There's a little bit of delay. So let me know if it came up because I hit the button and I don't know if it showed up.
It didn't come up, bro.
It didn't? All right, let me do it one more time.
There we go.
All right.
Oh, that's great.
So Chibi style is difficult. I think that's the whole thing, is that, just like with any style that you appreciate and that you go, wow, that looks so awesome. It must be easy to do it because they make it look so simple. And then when you try it yourself, you're like, no, it's so hard. It's like really, really difficult. And I think it's finding that correct blend of cuteness. Like you could draw a monster like that's like Cthulhu. If you do a Cthulhu chibi, and Cthulhus are very like, that's stuff of nightmares type stuff. But you could do a chibi version of it, and it's like, oh, it's so cute, but it's gonna come to me in my nightmares, and I'm just gonna like not be able to. I'll be an insomniac for like the next week, type things. But
I'll pull up a Cthulhu.
Oh, you did see? Derek has done it, Joe. Derek has done a chibi Cthulhu.
For sure.
Let me turn my screen off here.
So it's like a simplified, like just breaking it down to like I just made this into like a magnet sticker, which you can buy.
Yes.
Shameless plug.
No shame in that at all. That looks awesome.
I dig it. There we go.
You can actually do a Cthulhu Punisher, with that. I could see that Punisher as well.
Yeah.
Very, very cool. All right, so let's move to our third drawing challenge, and let me see if I can. My computer is like fun. It's death kneel. Let me share the screen one more time. I don't know why. It's like it conspiring against me. I'm gonna share that PDF one more time. Just bear with me. But we're gonna be doing the sellsword, which his name is Duncross. Duncross. And we're going to learn a little bit about his namesake, why he's called Duncross. I have some speculation. I think it's kind of neat.
There's no real reason. It just, I maybe like can apply some sort of ideas. It's interesting because he's kind of like, he's finished with the church in some way, like that is sort of, but it wasn't that the name didn't come because of that. That more came after the fact.
Okay, so there's not some deep,
like
deep.
He's done
deep...
with the cross.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's the deep meaning. I was kind of like going, oh, is it just strictly if you break it down into phonetics and sort of like going done cross, like he's don't cross me or he's done with the cross. I have no idea. There's all sorts of things.
I think it was kind of like. I was gonna say like, it was kind of like when I first started developing his character and I had the whole church conspiracy going on. I thought of him as somebody who was like maybe like a knight of the church at one point, like a paladin, and then once he kind of learned of the conspiracies that were kind of happening in there, he's like, I'm done with this kind of thing.
Okay.
So I don't know, but that was more. I think it's just a. I don't know.
Let's save that to like the genesis of Duncross. Okay. Like besides his name. We'll talk about his aesthetics, and I'll let Joe pick your brain too with stuff. But if you're going to draw along with us, these are the character sketches that they're so full of life. He's the second character in Crimson Fall, and he's the subject of our third live drawing. So right now I have I guess it's 237, but let's just round it up to like let's just say 40 at 255. We will stop. So let's go ahead and start drawing. And Joe, I'm going to pull up his art cam one time, and you can go ahead and start asking away. Let's start drawing.
Well, first off, yeah. So it's 237. 255 is way too long. It's
okay.
It's a 15 minutes. Let's see here.
Yeah.
Let's do the math. 45, 50. So let's do it until about 50, 52.
Okay.
And then we'll roll into it, make sure that we close out right. We got about 23 minutes left on the show. Just want to make sure that we have plenty of time. I love the idea that he's a sellsword. I love the idea that he kind of broke away from the church with some conspiracy elements that bothered him. One of the cool things about characters, especially when you're looking at ways that they can sort of tell their own stories, when they can be when there's conflict there without ever having to put action into the page. Like they've already got all the built-in goodies for it to work. What was your inspiration for this character? Like, what were you trying to do with him? Did you see First Night? Like, what was the thing that you saw and you were like, that's kind of like what I'm looking for, that sort of element. And then how did you break free from whatever your first kind of concept was?
It's interesting. Like, I think Hellboy was a pretty big influence for this character. So he's almost like he's got that kind of shape of Hellboy a little bit. Because I'm big on shapes, and I think a lot of my shapes come first when I'm starting to develop a character. So,
right.
It was just, I knew I wanted to have like a kind of a grizzled sort of veteran swordsman. And I was thinking of somebody who's, been around the block a few times, seen a lot of action. So he needed to have that kind of gruff look. There's a bit of Witcher in there because I find that I'm a big fan of The Witcher. And so it's got a little bit of that going on as well. So yeah, I think it's kind of like just a combination of the things I like. In characters, I like characters that have like kind of a bit of an edge to them, an attitude. To sort of they're over it a little bit, but they're still kind of doing it. If that makes sense. He's probably like I like yeah, like he's so and I think that just kind of lends to some of the thoughts and stuff when you're doing the design. So like that's, and then it's just drawing cool like aesthetics. Like I'll throw a skull on him because a little skull emblem because I like skulls. Like it's literally that simple. Like I throw skulls on a lot of stuff just because.
Yeah,
Maybe I'm just like an
pockets
adolescent.
down to a minimum. Pockets down to a minminimum.
Yeah.
I know you had a good start at Image that kind of ruffled your feathers, but let's keep the pockets down to a minimum.
Right. Yeah, no Rob Liefeld pockets on this guy. He's got some throwing knives and things, things that like, when you design your character, you're just like, okay, what are the little tools and things that he might use in a pinch? So I have these little throwing daggers. He has like, kind of like because there's no like guns or anything in this world. There might be some crossbows. I developed a character at a crossbow and stuff like that, but you need something you can like throw at a character and like hit them from afar. So yeah, he used these little throwing daggers, and that's kind of where that came from. And
okay.
So just little things like that, like little daggers and things that he has on his waist, or like sort of like little short swords, things that he can grab like in a pinch. But then he has like a big long sword he carries on his back. It's like his go-to weapon.
You know what I like about what you're saying is that you can be unapologetic when you're a creator, in the sense of, hey, I want to give him daggers and skulls because I like daggers and skulls. You don't need to answer to a committee or a focus group. You can just sort of say, I like this, therefore it will happen. Type things.
Exactly.
As a creator, I mean, independent creator. Is that something that you don't need to like have like these deep meaning for anything? Do you find that like completely liberating? You don't have to answer to anybody but yourself. Is that just a
Oh yeah, it's very freeing. Like, it's a long career of just drawing for other people and other people telling you kind of what they want, and eventually you just really just want to do what you want to do. As much as you appreciate like getting paid to draw and things like that, there could definitely comes to a point where you're just like, you know what, I want to see if I can just get paid to draw what I want to draw, and that's kind of where I'm at now. So. I still do lots of freelance, but I need this outlet for myself, and it's something that, like, I get to look forward to. It's like it's a treat. It's a treat when I get to draw my own characters and come up with my own stories and things like that. So, it just really fulfills me.
And I totally. Go ahead.
You've said you've done. Now, how many pages have you drawn for this story so far?
Okay, so there was 6-page short story that's in the Raid anthology.
Yeah.
So I'm working on a 22-page short story right now with Gunross. That's in development. I'm not sure exactly when I'll be done that, but I'm in the. I like to write and do layouts at the same time. It's kind of a weird mishmash. I write on the page a lot. I'll make little notes and stuff in like a Google Doc, but then I'll go to the page and I'll start to plug in the dialogue, and the dialogue will change.
Right.
And then it's a constant building process. It's just like my artwork. It's the same type of thing where it's like roughs build upon roughs, and then really start to wind it, narrow it down, edit it down. So a lot of the editing takes place in like real time. It's like I'm editing my movie as I go.
No, so talking about that editing in real time, like on your Patreon, I know there's a lot of things that you have on there. You have your book on there, drawing fundamental elements. You have a comic on there. How much of this process are you showing your Patreons? Is that what it is? Yeah, Patreons.
Patreons. So like they get they've gotten to see time lapse videos of me like putting together rough pages. I share just a lot of insight into I'll post a lot of the roughs, and I'll just talk about my thought process and my approach. And I'm also very open about the struggles I have as I go, because when you're developing something on your own, you're changing things. And if people who've been following my Patreon for a while, they'll know that back when I started Crimson Fall a year ago, and then how I sort of stopped working on it. I was very honest about okay, I've hit a wall with the story. I'm not sure exactly. It's not what I want it to be. I'll come back to it another time. And that's just kind of you get a real sense of struggles of being an artist as well. I don't sugarcoat things.
Yeah, you don't Instagram filter it.
No, no, not like especially there, because I feel like that's, I think the realities of being an artist, sometimes are something that people don't know. They don't know about. They don't know about like the bursitis in my hip that I'm dealing with right now. But my people on Patreon know. There's different things like that just like health things that come up, or the struggles of like spending too much time and then at your desk and then realizing later that like that was probably not the best way to be. I should have taken more breaks and different things like that. So I think that's kind of just one of those things that like if I can offer any kind of like extra insight into things, like that's what you're paying for, something. And I want just more than just like, here's my drawing from that week.
Right.
Which is fine. And I follow people that sort of take that approach to Patreon and stuff. And, but I also like, I'll do tutorials here and there when I can. Like they're a lot of work, but I try to do them. When I do them, I want them to be decent and something you're going to like get something out of. I find like having a Patreon that like people want to stick around for, because it's not like as beneficial if I decide to, if you just sign up for one month, I mean, it's great, but like I would like you to stick around. I mean, having the passive income really helps me work on projects like this. So that's kind of, I want to keep people there and I want to keep people engaged. I try different things all the time on Patreon. Like for a while I was doing like a Patreon showcase just on my actual Instagram. This is like showcasing patrons' artwork, which we kind of stopped because people stopped kind of like, because I was doing it monthly and then the numbers just kept kind of going down. And I was like, okay, well, it was just kind of like, for me, I'm like, I have this big platform on Instagram and I'm like, people are always looking for extra exposure to their work. I'm like, this is something maybe I can help share as extra benefit and stuff like that. So just little things like that. Like I'm always trying to think of different things I can add value to the Patreon and the community in general.
So I guess you look at Patreon as being like, if I wanted to subscribe to somebody, this is what I'd want to get out of it. And it's like, that's
100%.
It's not a strictly cash grab to like, oh, I'm gonna do, like you said, a daily drawing, and that's all you're gonna get out of it. I like that. I think that's what Joe was alluding to. It's like it's you want to give value beyond just the token drawing, that's out there.
Well, I mean, and I mean, coming from me, I'm not looking at whacking or hitting at anybody over the head with their Patreon or anything. It's just, it's nice to see people who have product who can say, hey, I've got all this product, I've got these books, I've got this PDFs, I've got these comics, utilizing Patreon in a way that is unique to them, that gives them value for what they're putting their time and their money into. So it's nothing wrong with people that are like, hey, you get an insight of my life. That's what you're paying for. Like, that's good. Okay. If people are willing to pay for it, then if the market's there, do you, boo. It doesn't bother me. It's just one of those things. But what was I going to ask about? Oh, talking about your website. So if somebody was, let's say they weren't a patron, but they wanted some of your books, or they saw some of your elements, or they saw something from this show, if they were to go to DerekLaufman.com, what kind of content would they be able to purchase there? What's free there? Like, what's give us a little pitch on your website itself, what somebody can get from that location.
Sure. So like I created a website long ago just because I need a hub. There's a lot of like different things like spread out across social media. I didn't like just pointing people at like, here's my Twitter and here's this and here's that. So it's like, it's easier just to be like, go to my website. I have links to all my social media on there. I have like an about page. I have like a few like frequently asked questions section on there. A list of tools that I use, like things like that. And then just showcasing my work. So I have like part of it is just like a portfolio where you can kind of see the work I've done. And then also it's a place where like, okay, so then I also have my shop as well. But I showcase my comics on there. The little comic you mentioned that was like free on there. It's more just like a quick little comic I had done that sort of gave insight into the making of a comic. So like, it was like a
it was
little
funny as
sort of
hell.
experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'd done it with in conjunction with the Inktober. I did like a takeover for their Inktober website, and I was looking. They were asking me to like do some posts for them, and I'm like, you know what? Because they kind of wanted to tell a bit of a story on there about who I was, and I was like, you know what? I just done this comic, and I think it would be fun to share like some insight into that. So I made it into like, I spent like a weekend just frantically drawing this quick little comic of like putting together my little process for the whole thing. And so I decided to throw that on my website, and but yeah, you can buy my books on there. I got art prints. I don't sell fan art on there anymore. I've gotten away from fan art. I find that like, although fan art got me sort of to where I am, I feel like for the future and where I'm going, I need more of my own stuff. And I find that like it's tough when you're like, I almost have to break people from the mold of being like buying what they're familiar with. Like if you're looking at like, you know, a Spider-Man print or this original print that I have, you're like, well, I already know Spider-Man, so that's familiar, and I'll take the Spider-Man. But it's almost like competes that IP that I didn't create is competing with my own stuff.
Right.
So I almost want to take that away and just focus on my own stuff, because I think going forward, I want to be able to sell things like after I've retired, like maybe when I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
You know, or like you know, say like I'm gone and my wife wants to sell books still like later on in life, like, you know, or whatever, like, you know, I'm leaving behind something that like is of value that my kids can still sell later, and
I mean,
different things like that. So like I think about those things.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the biggest thing with fan art, it's kind of like in your journey, everybody's journey, it does open the door. It can maybe peek the door open. It can get some sales at a con. It'll help pay for tables, things like that. I mean, that's all very important. And you know, and that sort of game that we all play, the grind of looking for ways to get into the big 2 or the big 3, big 4, if you really want to count some other ones. Like you're looking at, I can draw your characters and all those sort of things. The big thing with Comics Cast, indie Comics Cast, you know, our deal here, and I think a lot of other creators, whether they know they're doing it or not, I mean, we have to really take advantage of this wave of indie comics and how people are passionate about indie comics. They're moving a little bit away from the Marvel and the DC. They're looking for good work, and we have to be courageous as a group and look for ways that we say, no, we're putting our foot down. Like, this is our IP, and we have to back each other out. So, and just push it. I get it. You're at a con. I get that you got to pay for your table. I'm down. I do fan art too. I'll do live ones at cons or whatever. But yeah, once we get those IPs, we gotta get it out there and we gotta get it sold. Get the comics out to as many, because if we keep making our IPs more mainstream, then people are gonna want a poster to put in their kids, you know, bedroom or whatever.
Sure.
So that's what it's all about, and it's just a process. And like you said, you had to go through that process because you got the foot in the door, you blew up, you got good exposure, you've got these great jobs, but now, hey. Now you can flip the script and go back the other direction. You have that flexibility, which is 100%. Phenomenal. So all the hope in the world that works out for you. I don't see why it wouldn't. There's very few people that have your style, even though it's an animation style. Like, it's still very, very uniquely yours, which is very cool. That you can really clearly know it's your work from, like I said, about 5 miles away. But hey, I think where are we at now? It is 11:54, so I'll give you guys 30 seconds to clean up your last little bit. Gerald, you have one character. He has 3. I don't want to hear any excuses that you're not done yet.
Okay, all
it's
right.
Not like Derek hasn't drawn.
In all fairness, I've been drawing this guy almost every day for like the past couple weeks. So.
I love it. You got 3 different expressions. I love that your style really allows for elaborate, like I said, expressions, but in both the mouth as well as the eyes. The mouth doesn't get lost in the beard. Like, the way you've thought about that design is just very smart.
You got to hint at it, just a hint, but it's got to be there.
Yeah, very cool.
All right, Gerald, throw that
pencil behind you.
All right, pencil's down.
You don't need a pencil anymore. I want to see the pencil is gone.
Look at that. That is incredible.
It's
I'm gonna have to
amazing.
definitely go back on demand, watch this whole thing happen, because
Yeah.
you weren't kidding.
Oh,
It wasn't just one; it was three.
You know, I
had
redo
to
that head at the top like 3 times.
No, yeah.
That looks
Well,
incredible.
Overlapping shapes. It's a big
I wanted
deal.
to say he reminds me of a character. Who's that character from Game of Thrones? He has like a well, obviously there's tropes and things that you kind of like pick up on when you develop characters, and but yeah, the fact that I can like associate a live actor from another series with your character, it just breathes another sense of, it breathes more life into it. I haven't read the short story yet, but I almost feel like, hey, I already know a little bit about this character because you've put so much life into like a static drawing. So it's just
I want to talk about one thing that really bothers me about your artwork. You've got this character here, the guy on his right, right?
Bothers.
His
What
right.
are you talking about?
His right, and you've got like, I don't know, sketchy lines. It's not perfect. It's not finished. Yet you already have the weight distribution down and it looks real. That bothers me because I don't get that done until about, I don't know, 8th pass over, where I've been like, I can't get it doesn't look, my characters always look like they're floating. They never have enough weight.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I find that like life drawing in animation really they hammer that into you, but like where the weight is being distributed, like the foot that's carrying the weight, like, so I think that's, when you're doing a pose, like that's really important. But it's drilled into my mind in college about that. So the life drawing is key. Like I always tell people when they're like, how do I get better at drawing? It's like life drawing is huge. Like that's first and foremost.
Yes.
Like even if you go to like sometimes art gallery places or art houses, like even if you don't have a college, they might have like life drawing like in the evenings and stuff like that in the back room somewhere. I know they do here in London. So it's get to those art or the life drawing, like go to sit on a bus and draw people on the bus, like go to a park and just like draw people that just sitting there, you know what I mean? Like find life and go draw it, because it's important. I don't do it enough. I wish I had time now to do it more, but unfortunately it's I just don't have the time.
You don't need to. You already got it down. It's like muscle memory.
So it's ongoing.
No, I'm still. That's the thing. Like I look at my work and I'm like, it sucks. Like that's what I think like a lot of times. But I think that mentality helps me to just always try to get better. Like I look at this work and I'm like, this is a building block to hopefully what I am 5 years from now. And that's kind of how I think of things. I never feel like I'm going to be complacent with my style. That's probably why it develops over time. And if you like pick up my different art books I put out an art book every year over the last 5 years, and you see like I developed like a change in style between like this art book and
which if you become a Patreon,
this is like my newest
you can
one.
get a digital version of that book 1, right? I believe.
This one you get the digital instead of print now.
Yes.
And
collector's item.
Yeah,
right
I mean, people keep asking why is that a print, but this has a lot of fan art and stuff in there.
Oh, that's another reason. Yeah. That's another reason.
Fair point.
And like I can't sell these like really like on Amazon or anything like that. Not that I sell my books on Amazon, but that was kind of the thought process as well, is like going forward is like where I can sell my work and not having to worry about IP stuff. I can just I know some people get away with some things, but I like to sort of push away from that.
Right.
Yeah. Well, you're at that stage of your career where you don't need to rely on fan art anymore. I would, if I was you, I'd definitely be pushing my own IPs, because I'm ready to see my Crimson Fall toys and my Crimson Fall animated series. And I think it's so, you said you're aiming for that older demographic, so you can kind of like push a little bit. It's kind of funny because I saw some of the artwork, and we're going to share it actually after this. There's
stalling, Gerald.
It's
Stop
gory.
stalling.
What stalling? What am I stalling about?
Bring up your art.
No, Okay. Well, we're gonna finish that thought, Derek, in terms of like what I think about Crimson Fall. But
Okay.
let's go ahead and stop sharing that and get my art cam back up here.
There we go.
Hold on one moment.
Make it so. Make it so.
I'll make it so. All right, here we go. This is my Gunross, and let me share it real quick. And share. Come on.
It's never gonna happen.
There you go. So here's
nice.
I
love the action.
Thank you. It was so fun.
Shouting. That's great.
I wanted him to like. You were talking about shapes. It's like I've learned. This is masterclass with Derek. Derek has been talking. He's been talking about shape, form, or shape, language, forms, silhouettes, action lines.
Strong silhouette.
I don't know if this is very strong, but the way that I look at it is like now I can't help but think of these shapes and how they all connect together. And you're
that's a fantastic like start though to like a thing, and like with a few little tweaks, especially if you're doing a digital, like you just a few little tweaks here and there, and like the silhouette would read like so perfectly, and then you just do your cleanup drawing over top, and you're good to go.
Shoot. All right. I feel I'm on cloud 9. I felt like I went to a con and I talked to Derek, and Derek gave me his David Finch pat on the back and said, "You're not really that bad, Gerald. You have some promise." So it's really nice to hear that. But I just huge fan. So it's nice to apply what you've been talking about, and seeing your artwork and then hearing how you construct things and how you think things, and it's changing my whole idea of how I'm going to draw as well. But let me get this off there.
Wait 1 second before you pull it down, Gerald. Actually, Derek, why don't we put you on the spot if you don't mind? I would actually love to see and hear from you if you saw this and you're like, okay, how is it not reading right? Like, where is it? Where would you?
Do you want me to do a draw over?
Make a couple of adjustments. let's have that conversation, because I have my ideas. Gerald's great.
How about this? How about this? I'll do a live draw over.
Oh, here we go.
Cool, fun, good times. Let's screen capture and do a draw over. This is good.
I'm ready. I am ready. Yeah.
By the way, that on my Patreon, I offer a draw over tier. I'll do like a draw over on your artwork and give you feedback. I only have a few spots available each month, but if you're lucky enough to get in and grab one. So here's.
Let's get his screen back up here.
Okay. Well, that's
all right. Here we go. Here we go. It's like take me to school here, Derek.
Right. Get your pen and paper out.
I'm listening.
So I think this is great, because this is like this line you have here. Like you have a very good movement going there, and everything's moving that way, which is great. But you have this. This is a great shape. I'd probably like simplify that, shape. So like just his arms a little more like, you almost have to, when you start putting like weird bends, you almost lose the action,
the energy.
So I try whenever I can to kind of like keep that going, because your lines are, this is where he's going, right? So even your cape, if your cape's coming off like almost like because he looks like he's really darting, so I'd almost make the cape a little more, again, like almost like fall into line. Like they're all kind of going this way.
Yeah.
And then this shape here is great, because it's curving, it's all going, you know what I mean? Like everything's going this way. If you had the shape going that way, that'd be wrong. But you're pushing his shapes outward, which is great. And that you have that, this is really strong in here. This the way you're using the belt to sort of help identify that shape. I'd probably bring that down, because like that was kind of coming out too far your back.
Yeah.
So if I think about like his shape here, it's probably like somewhere in there, right? But again, so keeping shape here, and this leg I'd almost like bring almost down again, so almost like following the arm. And then here you're pretty good with this leg here. So if you just brought that in like that, like, so we're really like getting him.
Jeez, I am totally floored. And I'm gonna. My excuse is I ran out of paper. I had to make it fit. No, I have no excuse actually. This is everything you said is it's truth. This is truth. But I did run into the edges of the paper.
And then I would probably, if you're bringing this arm here, these straights and curves, So
Yeah.
you think like sometimes like you got your straights and you got your curves. So instead of bringing this arm, just you could go like straight down like that, but just a little more movement kind of like brings that guy in there. And then this comes up here. And then I'd probably put the knife here. So because it was impeding with his beard, but just a little bit more of a stronger silhouette. The knife is down in there. And then, you know, so
this is
really get, and then you just like you look like you have your character like this is he's leaping off the ground here. So you can see sort of like you have the beginnings there. And it's just a matter of like shifting things out and just moving things a little bit more and thinking about direction. So does that help?
Oh, yes. Oh my gosh. I'm like, I feel like I got
great.
a bonus.
And this is good for everybody out there. This is good. You can see what you would get if you get selected to be on his Patreon. So that's good.
I would do. I do a better job than this on your draw over on Patreon. Or quick demo.
You got put on the spot. You'll get a bonus. That's
you got a 30-second demo. It's like it's like the car wash guy that's like, hey, I can clean your whole car just like this, and you get a little corner wash.
Yeah. No, I try to spend about 30 minutes on each draw over to
awesome.
To really get in the grooves.
I love it. This was a great opportunity. I appreciate you letting us do that.
Yeah, I appreciate that too.
And now we're overtime because we did a little extra bonus element here.
Well, let's talk a little bit more about Crimson Fall because now you can actually get it. Aside from going to Derek's page, if you look in the chat field, I did put links to Derek's personal homepage where he does have a shop that you can go to. But I want everybody to kind of go to this. Let me share it. And my computer again is just, please don't die on me. I have just a few more minutes to tell the rest of Derek's story. And for some reason it's not sharing. All right, so Joe, help me out. You keep on asking questions so we don't have dead air while I get this link going.
TikTok. Do you have any other projects that are coming out? Any Hasbro or anything else that's on the hush hush?
That you can't get into trouble with us?
No, nothing really. Like again, those toy stuff, like a lot of it just once it leaves my hands, I'm usually involved in the early stages. So whether or not it actually makes it to the market, I never really know. They don't tell you. You're not really part of that whole process. You're just like, you get your paycheck and then move on to the next thing kind of thing. I have some stuff coming out with Topps. It should be released. I did a set of Marvel cards that should be out. I'm going to guess by DigiCon. I'm going to be doing like a live draw thing with DigiCon involved with Topps there. So that should be fun. And that's in April, I believe. April, my calendar up here. I don't have it up there. Yeah, April, sometime in April. And then I got like new Star Wars cards that are coming. I got some that I need to start working on. But we got a lot of sets planned for this year, which is fun. The way that like I work with the art director on the Star Wars side is really cool. Like we've talked about, he likes to get my input on like kind of things that I would like to work on. And so we got some cool ideas of different things that we want to do for different sets this year. So we got a couple of sets sort of like in the works. So that's exciting.
Sick. All
man,
right.
busy man. Yeah. All right. And so that's a good preview of what Derek has in store for the rest of this year. You know, I'm always looking forward to it because whenever I see a digital card drop on the Star Wars Top card collector app, it's always, and now it's going to have so much more meaning to me because of the man that's behind it. But here, this is where you can, aside from going to Derek's website and becoming a patron to his campaign, you can also go to Raid or Kickstarter, and there's a Raid anthology, volume 1 through the latest edition features a short story. Derek, it's like five pages. Is that correct? It's a 5-page short story.
6 pages for mine. But I will say this. Mine's probably the worst out of all. They're so good. Like the rest of the stories, like I've gotten to see them. Like they're so good. Like you're not. I think the coolest thing, like for me as a fan, like I love anthologies because it's like I get to discover all these new artists and new storytellers, and that's like it's like this quick little preview. It's like a little like spotlight on all these people, and it's just so cool. So like that's why like these opportunities come up to like grab an anthology, like especially it has to do with like horror, fantasy, like that type of stuff. It's so cool. So I highly recommend that people like go and grab this. Just I had the other 3 Raid books. Like I was a fan of like the Raid Studio before they actually asked me to come on. I have all their books. Like I said, like their last 3, and this is the 4th one. So I jumped at the chance when they asked me to be a part of it. So I'm very lucky to be involved with all these talented people.
You are in good company, but tell you that it's your contribution. I did get a sneak peek, and I'm scrolling through this really fast because the computer seems to let chug. So I'm just gonna let this go. There is, I say the anthologies are kind of like that Quaker Oats pack. You get a variety of. If you like maple brown sugar, you like apples and cinnamon. Maybe you might even like the plain flavor or whatever. But there's no plain artist in this. There's just so much. It's chock full of such good stuff. I mean, there's all sorts of genres. We got science fiction. We have fantasy. There's just something for, I think, for everybody. And Derek is a part of it. And now I can't get my computer to stop rolling. So it is funded. And it come on, stop scrolling. Is already funded, but that doesn't mean they couldn't use more backers because we can unlock more stretch goals. And gosh, my computer is going crazy right now. Let me just.
Well, not only getting backers, but you just get good content. Like it seems like there's just really good. I mean, it's just a good book. Sometimes all the people on Kickstarter or Indiegogo want is just a good book. It's like a good experience.
Yeah, like it's not. Like it's funny how like Kickstarter used to be like only for like I need to get this project done, so like please help me out. Where now it's just like a place to go get good stuff. Like I think you just find a lot of creators just using it because it's a great way to reach a larger audience, and it's just I think that's really what it is. Like as an independent creator, you're trying to get your work to as many hands as possible. That's kind of a goal, and ultimately. So, and this is a great platform to do that, and it's not. This project isn't about like, hey, give us money so that we can get this done. Like it's done. It's just, do you want to be a part of it? Like that's kind of what it is now. So
love it. That's the best kind.
Yeah. What you?
We're done.
Yeah. What you said.
We just want to give you the book.
Right. And I think that's the thing about this particular Kickstarter. It's chock full of talent and it's done. It's ready to go. So you're not going to wait, months for it to happen. It's already there.
No,
I need to like unshake.
No, like I think like that's the thing. Like Kickstarter can certainly be that. But I find like especially when I do Kickstarters, like I want to be ready to go to print pretty much like by the time it's done, because I want people not to wait around forever and then they get a book a year later. Like if you back one of my Kickstarters, you're going to get your book in the next like 4 months. Like it's going to be like I just finished my Witch of Wickerson Kickstarter in November, and just like last week we shipped out the last of the campaign, so like that's done now, and now I'm selling the book in my shop, and it's just now I get to move on to the next thing. It's just you got to keep things going. I don't like things to linger and like weigh me down in the background. It's like get it done, get it out, move on to the next project.
Well, that's what I was gonna say, is that you're a busy man, so it just keeps everybody like anticipating, waiting for that next Derek Laufman drop. Because I'm always, it's and that's the thing about Kickstarters. I want to support every one of them, indie creators or just artists that I love. But when it's a budget type thing, but it's also what I like about this particular piece is that it's done. You don't have to wait. Sometimes these things come up and they're just like, oh, help us get to like paying for the inker, paying for the colorist or whatever. This is good to go. It comes, and Raid Studios they have a good reputation. This is the 4th book that they put out, and it's even better because Derek is a part of it. so please like and subscribe. In the chat area, I put information to his personal website, his Instagram, and this particular Kickstarter campaign where you can see Crimson
And
Fall.
just for the record, I love watching Gerald's computer just trying to make it to the end of the show. Like it's fighting every last leg that it's got. So Suka Bull, I think is how you say her name or her name, his name. On YouTube said, "Great show, gentlemen." So thank you very much for that. Loved watching Derek draw again. So good. And hey, that was it. It was a treat for us to watch him draw. So that was cool. I didn't get to watch Gerald draw today. I guess his computer is just not going to happen. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get lucky next time for the next show.
Oh, it was Derek. It was so nice to watch.
I know.
Derek
I'm
draw.
talking about Gerald for a second.
Oh,
I extended my sentence to add on to that. But yeah, no, it was a treat for us too. That's what I was saying, Gerald. I'm sure your computer just didn't let you hear that.
It's not.
It's hit or miss.
Yeah, it's totally. And also we have Servain said it's always nice to see artists hang out together and just enjoy critiquing or even the simple thought process. So amazing. We got, and it seems like my computer's behaving a little bit. Maybe it's because I quit some things. It's amazing to see how much little advice can help. Wow. So
yeah, they were saying these things over the draw over. So great stuff. So this is the part of the show where we're ready to wind it down, and so let's go to the we call the Oscar speech. This is where we allow Derek to give your final thoughts. So I'm going to solo you out if my computer will allow me to. I'm going to let you just give your final thoughts. You may not come back after soloing.
Yeah, here we go. All right, here. So go for it, Derek.
Okay. So just thanks guys for having me on. It was amazing, and I just want to encourage people out there to go create their own things. Not to discourage anybody who's doing fan art, but it can certainly be a stepping stone for your career. But never stop creating your own things. And that's about all I have to say. Go create.
Perfect,
right.
Sweet, to the point. Short. Great Oscar speech. We don't have to turn the music on to cut you off. Absolutely perfect. Emphasis the idea of fan art. I love it.
I didn't want to hear the music.
Yeah. But no, great. I mean, my biggest thing before Gerald shuts us down, I just want to make sure everybody, if you enjoy the content, make sure you subscribe. 50% of the people that watch our show are new viewers that aren't subscribing. So help us hit that next level so that we can keep supporting these indie creators that are doing their own thing. They're fighting the good fight. They're building their IPs. They're trying to get it out there. Help us create that platform on YouTube to get that a little bit better. Facebook is solid. Instagram is solid. Let's get our numbers up on YouTube so we can hit that algorithm and help our fellow indie creators out. So if you see this, you enjoy the content, just share it, like it, do whatever you feel like doing. You know the drill how to do it on YouTube. So that's all I wanted to make sure I said. And also to Derek, thank you so much. That was really cool. And now that you're in my sphere of people that I look up to and I admire, I'm like, okay, now I can bother him about some upcoming stuff. So thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of my new target audience of people I like to talk to. But it was a pleasure talking to you, seeing you work. I absolutely love it. And maybe I'll figure out one of your drawing books because my kid is an artist and he does like a lot of Sonic stuff right now. And he's finally hitting the next stage where he's like going to shift over to like humans, And I'm like, oh, he's almost there. I wanted to do more Western stuff, but he always wants to draw Sonic. Come on, you could make it. You could do a crossover. And I'm too much of a Western Jim Lee clone to even do anything to really get him. And that was like, there's just that space, that animated space that he loves being in. I think your style is just going to be the thing that kind of works. But yeah, anyway, I'll be quiet now. I'm turning into fan dad, and I just want to be like,
oh well, I had to resist the urge myself because I'm a big fan of Derek.
At least your kid likes to draw.
Yeah, at the end of the day. But he's totally
my kids hate drawing.
Oh, my kids. Well, you could only have so many generations. Okay, you had your mother that was an artist, and then you got to do it. I got lucky. My stepmother was an artist. She was a classic painter, and then I fell in love with comics early on. I was drawing Image comics from Spawn when I was like 4, like 5, whatever. Like, should not have been reading Spawn, but for some reason that was like my thing. Superman, whatever. And now he loves Sonic, and I've always kind of pushed it on him, but I never forced it on him. But I'm like, he's gonna be so much better than me. His line weight and everything is so great. It's frustrating. I get a little jealous sometimes. Man, that looks really good.
Yeah. Well, wait till he gets the Derek Laufman.
Yeah, no, I am proud of him. Proud of him. But it's a classic. It's a classic. He doesn't go to school to do school. Like, stop drawing. You got to do school. You got to learn discipline, or you're never going to be a great artist.
Hey, it worked out for me.
Yeah.
I know. Listen,
you don't get to talk to my son.
Okay, so
anyway,
Derek,
go ahead, Gerald. You got it.
Derek, thank you so much. It's been a treat, and I'm so happy that we're able to share your talent with our audience, because there's tons of fans already out there, but we're just trying to make that sphere much bigger in terms of people just love your artwork. So thank you for being on the show. With that, I'm gonna go shed a tear because I have to end the show. So we will see you next week for another edition of Comcast Let It Out. Love you. Bye.
Bye, guys.
And
and we are still live. Thank you, Gerald. Good work. We are still live. Welcome back.